Hi, I'm Candace Suarez, Executive Director at Optimum Ed.
And I'm Tom Leahy, Managing Partner at Optimum Ed.
So the assessment has three main parts to it. It has the thinking style, the personality traits, and the interests. And all three of those things come together to create your individual profile. So the thinking style is how you process information. It's going to give you information on 5 different areas. It's going to show you an overall thinking style, and then it's going to show you how you process information verbally and numerically. And then we're going to be going into 9 specific personality traits that tell you pretty much what you would want to be doing, and then going into interest areas as well. So you're probably wondering why we show you a bell curve. So the bell curve is because our information is provided in a statistical format. And what that means is that the majority of the population is going to be right there under the biggest part of the curve, under the center. So, and actually 95% of the population falls within 2 standard deviations of that mean. So what that means is if you got a 4, it doesn't mean that you have a 40% and you failed it. It means that you're like the majority of the population. Now, when we're looking at thinking style, the higher the score, the stronger. But when we're looking at the personality traits, a 1 is not worse than a 10 or vice versa. It's very much different expressions of the trait. So if you are in those extremities though, I want to point out that it just means that you're more unique. So if you have a lot of 9s and 10s and 1s and 2s, it just means that you are not like the majority of the population. You're more unique and therefore might have less jobs presented to you because of that. So just keep that in mind. So once you complete your assessment, you'll be getting 2 things sent to you. You'll be getting a written report, which is a very important part because it really pulls out what the scores are and the numbers. You will also be getting a graph, which is what you see right now on the screen. The graph will give you the number and numerical value, and I'll explain to you what those mean, but the written report really is the most important for you. It's going to pull it out and tell you what those numbers mean. So for example, looking at the thinking style, our Sally sample example has a number 6 for her overall learning index. And if you remember from the bell curve graph, a 5 is average, the majority of the population. So she falls right in the middle of the average score with a 6. She falls a little bit lower with her verbal skill, which is basic vocabulary knowledge. She is average as well with her verbal reasoning, which is problem solving using words and language. She is also a 5 average in numerical ability, which is basic math facts. And her highest is the numeric reasoning, which is a 7. And that shows problem solving using numbers, those basic word problem kind of things, okay? So she's a pretty strong score as a learning index overall of 6, which means that she can pretty much is capable of doing a very large number of positions. So moving down into the personality traits, this is going to tell us what she wants to be doing and what she would be happy doing, not necessarily what she's going to be good at. So as we go through each of these and I give you an explanation, be thinking about how it applies to the workplace. For example, energy level does not necessarily mean if you have a lot of energy to run around. We're looking at the pace at which you work. So if you're a 9 or a 10 in energy level, you prefer a work environment with a very fast pace. All right, so that means that you can handle a lot of chaos, you can multitask, you can handle a lot of juggling of multiple responsibilities. Think emergency room situation, okay? Very fast pace. If you are a 1 or a 2 in energy level, you prefer a much more slow, methodical work pace. The next one is assertiveness. So assertiveness is looking at leadership. So if you're a 9 or a 10 in assertiveness, you're the kind of person that walks into a room and is compelled to lead. Okay? You immediately walk in and you want to be telling everybody what to be doing and giving everybody tasks, whether you are qualified to do that or not. You feel that need to be a leader. If you are a 1 or a 2 in assertiveness, it doesn't mean that you can't lead, but you don't really prefer to be leading all of the time. Okay? You might, if it's a comfortable situation for you and you feel confident, perfectly capable of leading, but you would much rather sit back and allow someone else to be taking that lead and that spotlight. You prefer to be that consistent worker and not the leader of the situation. The next one is sociability, and that's pretty much the way it sounds. With this one, we're looking at oftentimes extrovert versus introvert, right? So if you're a 9 or a 10 in sociability, you need to be around people in a workplace. You prefer that collaborative environment where you're bouncing ideas off of people all day long. If you are a 1 or a 2 in sociability, you prefer to be working by yourself. You would much rather be sitting in a cubicle with your laptop or in the lab with the rats, and it's exhausting for you to have to work with people all day. So 1 or a 2, you prefer to work solo most of the time. So the next one is manageability. If you are a 9 or a 10 in manageability, you are a rule follower all the time. If you are a 1 or a 2 in manageability, you aren't really concerned about the rules so much. You're comfortable walking outside of those rules and making up your own as you go. The next one is attitude. So this is your glass half full versus glass half empty. If you're a 9 or a 10, everything is wonderful. Everything's gonna work out great. If you're a 1 or a 2, you're a little bit less optimistic about outcomes and the way things will turn out. The next one is decisiveness. If you are a 9 or a 10, you are a quick decision maker. You fly through decisions very quickly. If you're a 1 or a 2, you take a very long time to make decisions. You look at every possible piece of information ahead of time before you do so. The next one is accommodating. This is your general ability to be accommodating and a team player. If you're a 9 or a 10, you are so accommodating that you allow other people to walk all over you to get their way. If you're a 1 or a 2, it is your way or the highway. You are going to be the one walking over other people to get what you want. The next one is independence. This is not your ability to live independently on your own. This means how you prefer to work. So if you're a 9 or a 10, you prefer to be given a task and left on your own to figure out how to do it. If you're a 1 or a 2, you prefer very specific directions and step-by-step guidelines. You like a lot of feedback in your work as well. And the last one is objective judgment. If decisiveness is how quickly we make decisions, objective judgment is how we make decisions. If you're a 9 or a 10, you are a logical decision maker and you make your decisions based on facts and data. If you're a 1 or a 2 in decision making, in objective judgment, you are making your decisions based upon your gut, your feelings, and your intuition. So we've gone over the thinking style, the personality traits, and now we're going to talk about the interest categories. So your report is going to give you your top 3 in that order interests. So there are 6 different interests. The first is enterprising. Enterprising has to do with business, sales, persuading others. Okay, the next is financial administrative, which also is a business tendency, but more that administrative organizing of information. The next is people service. That is pretty much the way it sounds. The work that you strive to do is going to be in the service of people, altruistic in nature. The next is technical, which is scientific activities, data, and research. The next is mechanical, which is working with your hands. You're a builder. You like to create and build things with your hands. And then the last is creative. And this does not necessarily mean artistic or musical. It also means creative ideas and big picture thinking as well.
So we've seen the parts of the profile: thinking style, personality, and interests. They come together to tell us what jobs are appropriate for that profile based upon what people with a similar profile are actually doing out there. So when we say you should be a dog groomer, it's because dog groomers have your same profile, or an engineer, whatever. You get the idea. It's a very practical approach. So now we're going to look at the jobs. You saw the student's profile. Now, what jobs are appropriate? You're going to then see at the end of your report a battery of jobs, as I said, are appropriate for your profile, and they're going to be across 16 different job categories. These are 16 job categories that the government uses, the school systems use, and you're going to find that you're going to have jobs in an array of different job categories. So let's take a look what they might look like for you when you get this report. So you can see that they are across all different categories, and this number on the side here corresponds to the job category. So 15 is STEM, so you can see there's some STEM jobs here as well. And these are going to be your top best matches across all 16. So if you see something that you find interesting, you can go in and take a look. And this is where the power of the process occurs. So let's take a look at, for example, architectural drafter. When you click on that live link, and they will be live because we'll be sending you a PDF report, it'll take you out to the ONET, which is a huge website of information and data about these jobs and careers. So here we have architectural and civil drafters. It gives you an explanation of what the type of work is that you're doing. Prepare detailed drawings of architectural and structural features. Makes sense, right? And it gives you titles that you might hold depending on the job that you get hired for. And then it gets into the weeds of the job, day in the life of kind of stuff. So it'll tell you, for example, all the different tasks on it that you have to perform on a daily basis. And it'll even tell you how important each task is to the job. Is it core or supplemental, right? Important information just to understand what you have to do every day when you get out of bed and go to work. These are the things you're going to be having to do. Tells you what technology that you have to be familiar with, software programs and things in order to be competitive and successful. Knowledge base, skill base, what abilities you have to have, work activities. It just goes on and on. This is all about understanding what's involved in the job, and can you, as an individual, get your heart and mind around doing this kind of work every day. Are you going to be happy getting out of bed and going off and being faced with this type of work, right? Obviously, it's a fit for your profile. It showed up in our array of jobs, but now it's time to get more specific, right? So this is the passion piece, all right? And this is a job zone 3 in terms of preparation, education, and training, right? So it shows you that. So what do we have to do in order to get there? So it'll tell you, how much time you have to spend preparing. And then, it also has some related jobs. If you don't like drafting, then you can, go down the rabbit hole on any of these other jobs and take a look too, and make that transition to a different type of work and see if that makes more sense. So again, that's the passion piece. Does it make sense for you as an individual? But we want to make sure it's also viable, right? I mean, just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean it's going to be around when you get out of school, or it may not even pay the bills, right? Does it make sense in terms of the education you have to secure and what you're going to be making at a starting salary? What are you going to be competing for in terms of number of jobs? So we can provide that as well. Here we've pre-selected Virginia and a zip code here in Richmond, but you can quickly compare salary ranges across the 3, United States, Virginia, and Richmond. So you can just immediately see, based on the education or training that you have to, achieve, here's what you could anticipate starting out at as a salary, and where are you going to top out at if you get to the top of your profession. And the other important part, obviously, is it growing, declining? So we can compare that, again, Virginia, United States. It's not growing here in Virginia. It's declining by 1% in the United States. And there's only 250 job openings each year in Virginia. So looking at this information, while it might be something that resonates with you on the passion side, does this really make sense to go into something that's not growing year over year? Maybe we need to take your passion in a different direction, right? Job opening, only 250 jobs in Virginia that you're going to be competing for on an annual basis, if it's still around when you graduate. Does that, if you want to stay in Virginia, probably not possible unless you're the very best drafter around. You may have to look outside the boundaries of Virginia to find work. So these are the kind of questions you can answer, and that's why it's important to look at this information so that we can make better decisions about direction, right? And as we said before, direction drives academic path, and that drives college majors and college selection. And if we use this information effectively, we can keep from having that 6-year college experience. Thanks.